It is officially a day or two before players start unlocking the Striker in Roblox Jailbreak, and we're actually going to be discussing what it ends up trading for, and I'm also going to be providing the full inside scoop of how I think this vehicle will end up performing in trading, so let's get right into it. First of all, the Striker actually had some gameplay leaked recently, and I've got to say, it is a very cool looking vehicle, and it actually has a unique texture. However, this texture will not be tradable, and some of the things I'm going to be referring to today actually make it seem very similar to the Shogun. So as you guys recall of the Shogun had a lot of cool customization on the front of the vehicle, and as well as that really awesome texture that the owner of the vehicle ended up putting. And so the Striker is a very similar situation. However, from the leaked gameplay, the performance of this vehicle was extremely bad, and I'm not even sure if this is going to be end up changing. I really hope so. But the Striker went 140 miles per hour, which, if you guys don't know, is actually even slower than the Celestial. So the Striker right now has a little bit of a questionable performance from what I've seen. But one of the things that are really going to be a strong point for this vehicle is going to be, in fact, that minigun. A lot of vehicles right now, they don't have minigun, and I think that's going to be an awesome thing that people are going to be trading for the Striker. So for example, the Goliath is one that I can think off the top of my head, and so is the SWAT van, but the SWAT van isn't tradable. So anyways, that actually gives a pretty decent summary of the Striker. I think after the whole fiasco of the gameplay being leaked, the Striker is probably going to have a top speed of around 180 miles per hour. I really hope Zemo ends up increasing the vehicle's performance, but the vehicle itself is actually pretty straightforward. Once you kind of break down the minigun, it is pretty much the gimmick of the vehicle. So we had basically the Frostcrawler last season, which had the tow hitch, and then the vehicle prior to that, I think it was the cringe horn or longhorn, whatever you want to call it, but I think it was a convertible. So yeah, that's pretty much the gimmick of this whole entire vehicle, the minigun, and I don't think you're going to need the Game Pass to use it or anything, so you're going to be able to get basically a free Celestial, and I think that is where most of the good parts of this vehicle, and it is one of those vehicles where I think it's going to do very well those first few days, and it's easily going to be getting offers of above a Macron. I want to even say 5 million. I think it's going to go for an M12 if you're like one of the first leaderboard players to get it, because that's basically consistently what I've been able to get for vehicles that have always released their first few days. But after more people start getting it, I don't think the hype is going to be there for this new Striker vehicle. I think it's just kind of very similar to the Shogun, and I haven't really heard much positive things about this vehicle besides that, oh, it has a minigun. So I think that is actually going to end up being, in short, what the Striker goes for. And if you want to actually see for yourself on jailbreaktraining.net, I do have a lot of other things listed here. And for example, the value is actually right now mostly going to be about 2.5 million. And that is because I think that is actually where it's going to settle at. So if you compare it to something like the Frostcrawler last season, it settled at about 1.5 million. And I believe I also had a placeholder value around that same range for last season, which was about 2 million. So yeah, then it eventually balanced out at about 1.5 million. So it's the same kind of approach here with the whole Striker situation. I actually kind of like this vehicle, but I actually don't think I'm going to be using it. So it's actually a kind of a cool collector vehicle. And if you do end up getting this vehicle, let me know in the comments what you actually end up thinking about it. But hopefully it's not going to be another Longhorn, because the issue with the Longhorn is that it's just not a good vehicle as far as like the gimmick goes. Basically, the convertible roof is just about the equivalent of useless. And so when you compare it to something like the Longhorn, there's a very big reason why the Longhorn has really underperformed. And so if you actually paid for the season pass for the Longhorn, yeah, I know what you probably feel, because that vehicle just really did not do so great in trading, and I completely had no influence on it whatsoever. The Longhorn was just a very mediocre vehicle, but now you have the Striker. I think this vehicle is going to definitely be going for a decent price at the start, and realistically, if you are a season pass player, then by all means, I would say get yourself like an M12 at minimum for it. Heck, you might be able to get some decent overpays, but realistically, the most you're probably going to be able to get for the Striker the first day is likely going to be something of along the lines of a Power 1. The Power 1, where it settles in all of this, is it's kind of a good stepping stone vehicle, and if anything, I think that's the most potential that the Striker really has. Like I said, the minigun, it's a very cool gimmick, but the rest of the vehicle, when I look at it, it literally looks like a Shogun. I don't know if you guys can tell the resemblance, but yeah, it's pretty much a Shogun. In fact, I actually think it also looks like a car from Grand Theft Auto. I've been playing that a good amount too. And yeah, I honestly think that as far as a performance, it's going to be very kind of mediocre in that department. But hey, if you want a vehicle that has that cool minigun, that is really all I could say about the Striker. So what else should I say? I guess I could talk a little bit about the other items this season that go along with the Striker. Like I said, I think it's going to be good if you really are into the apocalypse thing. For example, there's a very cool texture that you're going to be able to put on the Striker, and that texture is called the road hazard. I actually think that this vehicle would look very good with the road hazard texture, and I don't think it's going to be a very hard texture to get. Again, level 8 this season was relatively quick, and I think the season itself has been around 70 days or something. So I think where it scales in the end of the day is that the Striker is just going to be all over the place in like 2 or 3 weeks. I would give it that much. Seriously, guys, if you want to get anything for the Striker, you basically would have to have the season pass, because stuff like the road hazard texture, it's obviously going to go for around 250,000. It's just consistent with all the other textures that have been level 8 for the past few seasons. And so besides that texture in the vehicle itself, you can't really do much else with it. Like what, you can maybe give yourself like a few decent rims on the vehicle. I'm trying to think of something positive to say about the Striker without trying to like hate on it. I think it's a very mediocre vehicle. Like I can't really say much about it. That also goes for the value explanation for it as well. It's not really that impressive. In fact, I think it's better than the Wild West season, but the vehicle itself is still not going to be the best, because we all know stuff like the supercars are always the best vehicles in the game. I think the Bagnet, I think all of those vehicles, especially like the Javelin, I know it wasn't a seasonal, but it's been doing very well in trading lately. And the surprising part about supercars is no matter what, most of the time they do perform very well. So both of the vehicles I mentioned are basically better than the Eclair, and I'd say that's the benchmark for whenever a seasonal is actually going to do well or not. So for example, if your vehicle is going to go slower than 200 miles per hour, it's just not going to be a very worthwhile vehicle other than for collecting. And so far with the leaked gameplay for the Striker, that is actually exactly what it was able to fall under. It's basically going 140 miles per hour, and it might have changed. Hey, it might actually end up being 160 miles per hour. I'm really hoping it's at least 180 miles per hour, but at the end of the day, when you have the closest vehicle that is a Celestial beating it, that's not a very good price. So if you like the Road Warrior rims, I think you're going to like this vehicle, because you're going to be able to equip a bunch of stuff for it. Same with the Biohazard rims. I'm not going to make individual videos for these items because they're very self-explanatory. I mean, you take one look and you pretty much know exactly what they're about. But this season is very good for customization if you like the apocalypse theme. Everything else, though, it's not much that I can really say about, because you have just a lot of things that go into trading, but yet this vehicle is missing one of the biggest marks, which is that performance benchmark. And so when you're just going to have a lot of players just kind of skipping this vehicle and not really collecting it, it's just not going to do that well at trading. So hey, maybe in like a year or two, that's maybe when I'd expect it to go from like 3 million to 4 million, somewhere around there. But right now, I just can't really think of much else for this vehicle to basically be above 2.5 million. So I know a lot of you guys wanted a value explanation. There isn't really much else to it, except you look at this vehicle, hey, you either like it or you don't. And I think the minigun is probably one of the coolest features of it. But at the same time, I think it's just a 2-seater, and the gameplay that was leaked for it recently, yikes. I'm not too hopeful for this vehicle getting a lot of attention in trading, and so I've been pretty accurate with just about everything so far being added into the trading island. And so if this vehicle miraculously just makes a comeback, that would be great. But right now, 2.5 million, that's my estimate. Same with the unit price. And I actually changed the unit pricing on Jailbreak Trading on that. It used to be called Brutally Values, but unit pricing, it's just every 10 million basically. So the unit pricing for this vehicle is going to be 0.25. And we also have the trading calculator, so I do have the striker and all of the other season pass items included in this season on the trading value calculator as well. But other than demand really aside and speed, which speed is going to be finalized once probably more people start getting the vehicle. I think a lot of you guys saw the gameplay for the striker, and I'm just telling you straight up, it was a drag race between the striker and the celestial, both two vehicles with the minigun. And well, when you have the Seltzer basically start beating the striker towards the end, it's not a very good, exciting look for the vehicle. And so unfortunately, that's all I can really say about the striker right now. I think it's going to be a pretty decent vehicle, but if you're basically like anything lower than level 5 right now, I would definitely not rush getting the striker. Realistically, you should have just had the season pass if you want anything above 5 million for this vehicle. So, hey, let me know what you guys end up getting. I think it's going to be a pretty decent vehicle, but I can't say much else about it. I'm hoping maybe one of these days we end up getting another Japanese season, because I think that as far as vehicles go, that season was definitely one of the best for vehicles. And then the Apocalypse is kind of somewhere in the middle. It's obviously not as bad as something like the Wild West season, but I think it's just in the middle. The modeler of this vehicle did a very good job in creating it. I like the spikes actually coming out of this vehicle, but I don't think that ramp is going to do anything except maybe make it harder to cause tracks. So I did actually not get a chance to see this for myself, but I really hope just collisions are disabled for that ramp at the front, because it's going to be causing a huge issue. The vehicle itself probably going to take like 5 or 6 bullets before the tires pop, so that's actually just right in line with every other supercar. But then again, even though it is armored, it's not realistically armored, because bullets are still going to hit the passenger and the driver of the vehicle. And so yeah, you have all of this kind of make-believe armor and the minigun, but here's the thing. I've talked about this great minigun and how it's a cool gimmick, but who actually is going to be out here using the minigun? So that's kind of what I wanted to list for the striker. It's got a cool design. That's really all I'm going to say it has going for it. I don't even know what it says on the side. Does it literally just say hello question mark? That's kind of random. I think this vehicle itself is kind of random, but it does have some cool customization. Again, it has those kind of make-believe armored windows, which aren't going to do anything. If you want the customization and you like the appearance of the vehicle, I would say go for it. You're going to be really liking the striker no matter what you pay for it. If you like the design, go for it, but it's just not going to have the trading value. How about that? We come to a conclusion that the striker, it's a unique vehicle, but unfortunately, I just can't say much more than that. So that being said, that is my early summary of the striker. Once I end up getting this vehicle, I will maybe summarize a little bit more about it, tell you about the performance. Right now, a little bit speculative, but again, I did explain my reasoning for what I think this vehicle is going to perform, and based on what I saw on stuff like X, Twitter, Discord, all of the different channels for communication that this game has. Not a lot of people talking about the strike, which is in contrast to something like the Shogun, which definitely is not doing much better in this vehicle. It's basically at 3 million, so only 500k difference from the predicted striker price, but there is definitely a lot more demand for the Shogun to start off with, whereas the striker, we'll see if it catches up. We'll see if it slumps down, but I really hope this vehicle stays 2.5 million. I think that is a very respectable price, but that is all I'm going to say about the strikers. That being said, if you are new to my channel, make sure to subscribe, and if you like the video, make sure to like. But anyways, guys, I'll see you in the next Roblox Jailbreak training video. Have a great day.